Hey, brothers and sisters, it's James here from Shepherd Through Christ and my lovely wife Sam and our cute little man, little Samuel here. We just want to say happy Sabbath and blessed be the Lord today in your lives, and may your refreshing be abounding. And we just pray that you will be touched by this testimony of Sam's. And let's start with a word of prayer. Thank you to Heavenly Father in heaven for your love. Thank you, Lord, so much for the amazing things you do in our lives and the way that we can testify of your goodness and glory and power through Christ Jesus, your Son, and in our lives personally, to be a witness to those that should hear and have encouragement, knowing that the same can be in their lives as the Lord changes us at this time. Lord, I pray that your spirit will rest upon Sam and that you will just give it the right words and the right expressions and be able to just bring it out as it is and what you have done in the success of her life. And I pray to Heavenly Father that all things may be to your glory and honor with this testimony. Is our prayer in the name and power of Jesus Christ. Amen. Love you.
Okay,
There we go.
so for those who don't know who I am, first I just want to say I'm not very comfortable with being in front of a camera, so it's gotten a lot from my husband to get me here finally. So I'm going to try and keep my shy side aside for a moment and just get this all out because I just want to share how Christ has come into my life and made me a completely different person. And how I have learned to understand who God is, who our Father in heaven is, and how I just want to share him with the world. So let me begin by saying my name is Samantha. I have three little children, a 7-year-old, a 2.5, almost 3 years, and a 12-month newborn baby, Samuel. This is Samuel. And then my other son's name, that's the 2.5, he's Matthew. And then I've got my firstborn daughter, Hopi. Actually, Hope, but we call her Hopi. It's funny how we named her a short name and then you give her a longer name, but we usually want to shorten the names. We're saying Samantha and then they call me Sam, but then Hope is Hopi. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so I made a few notes, but I feel every time I've tried to do my testimony, I try and write it all down and I get all lost in it and then I get all overwhelmed and then I don't want to share it. So I've made a few notes this time and I'm going to let the Lord just lead me and remind me of the things that are valid that needs to be shared because at the end of the day, I would really love to just reach those who have not yet found Jesus, who are still trying to understand what the Bible is all about, who God is, and how things happened the way they did. And I think a lot of people get changed by someone's personal testimony, um, or they might be able to relate, and it helps them on their journey. So I really hope and pray that this will reach those who are still seeking and still trying to find something to relate to. And maybe my story can help someone. I don't know, but let's see. Let the Lord lead. Okay, so basically I'm just gonna go with I'm 35 years old and I had a normal upbringing. My mom and dad, they were believers, but they didn't really fully practice any Bible or really teach it to us. My father wasn't really that interested, although he did come from a very strict Christian background. He was quite rebellious, and my parents come from the baby boomer generation, and my parents are pure rock and roll people. They were the ones, the teenagers influenced at that time to be influenced by rock and roll and the lifestyle revolving around it. So, me as a small child, I grew up having that more as an influence in my life, where it was rock and roll, it was the cool dad and the cool mom, and my parents both smoked. Both of them drank, but my dad drank a lot more than my mom. Um, he was an alcoholic. It got worse as we got older, as I got older, and as he went on into the marriage. And it did really affect our lives as children quite a bit, especially the alcoholic side of things. People like we've known us as Adventists, we understand the health message and we know that certain things that we consume, caffeine and alcohol and all kinds of other things that can affect our prefrontal lobe, which is our decision making. And when you are drinking excessively, your decisions that you make are not sound, they are more by feeling and so on. So um, it was difficult growing up. I grew up with a mom that was always trying to point out the wrongs in my dad. And I think by pointing out those wrongs in him, it caused him to want to continue on drinking more and more because he felt, he was being um, targeted, or he was being yeah, like it was being put in front of him, his problems. So it didn't make him feel any better about getting better, and it didn't sound, from my mom's opinion, if he could get better. So me and I have a little brother. It's just me and my brother, and we grew up moving quite a bit. Reason for that is because my father struggled to keep a job. He would usually drink too much one day, and then it affected his work, and it affected the way he would be able to perform in the day, and people eventually got fed up with it and they would let him go. So we would often be moving for these reasons. And as a child, I would always be living out of boxes. We would be in a new place and we just packed out some of the things in the boxes, and the next thing we've got to move again. And uh, a good time came that when I was about 8 years old, um, my father got he got an offer through his brother to go and work on a farm. It first started with a dairy farm, and then progressed into chicken farming, and he did quite well there. And the people that work on the farms, they have a more, laid back kind of situation. Yes, you have to keep through all the things in the day and do that, but a lot of people lived on the property. So my dad, he seemed to function better in this kind of environment. So we stayed on a farm for a good couple of years, and this was quite a it was quite a impact on my life, where even till today I want to be on a farm. Even though we haven't yet gotten there, we've gotten pretty close. So hopefully the next place we go to will be a farm. But if not, it's all in the Lord's hands anyways. But in this time that I was growing up on the farm, I started becoming more cognitive and started realizing the things happening around me. And uh, before I continue, I just have to mention something. When I was very young, something terrible that no parent wants to have happen to their child happened to me. And it happened when I was 4 years old. I think I said that. And it really affected the rest of my life. It made me, it changes you in such a way that you can't really be 100% normal child anymore. You have a sense of sadness that you carry with you wherever you go. But I was very good at hiding it, and I would be quite happy to meet new people. And every time I go to a new school, I'd meet new friends, and I can't wait to make these friends. And I just want to be happy around them and make them happy. And I think I got into trouble quite a bit in classes as well because I ended up wanting to talk to everyone instead of focusing on what the teacher's saying. Um, but funny enough, it didn't really affect so much of my school time. Like I would still do quite well in school. I wasn't doing terrible. I wasn't the top of the class, but I definitely wasn't at the bottom. I was just doing normal. I was quite average. And so we get to the farm now, and I start to be, more thinking about who I am and who I want to be. And you start dreaming about how you're going to be when you're a grown up. And because my father especially was the one that was the influence in our lives, he was the big rock and roll man. He was always in a party vibe. He would always have people over the weekends for a braai, or as what we would call a braai in America is a barbecue. So we would have a lot of those, and a lot of people come over and they just drink and party, and us kids are just sort of in the background, and we just have to, like, go with the things. So we normally fall asleep under a table, or found a couch or something, and you pass out there. So it wasn't a strict growing up life. It wasn't, my parents, I won't say they were neglecting me, but they weren't so conservative in the way that they cared to bring up their children. They thought that they had their own things that they were going through, and I think in a big way they were still kind of growing up and trying to find themselves and who they are. That they didn't realize that they were kind of neglecting my brother and I's bring up, the way we would be brought up. So um, basically, music was a big influence in my life. Probably the biggest influence in my life besides my father. And it would be all kinds of rock and roll music. And so I was born in 89. So the music that was going on in the 90s was basically what was being influenced in my life, and then the things that my dad would be brought up with, or what he would listen to when he was a teenager, which was basically the 60s kind of rock and roll music. I think that's really where rock and roll music became a big thing, and it influenced a lot of the youth in that time, and they carried it on into their growing up lives, and it affected us as kids. So I loved the music, and sometimes my mom would go to church on Sundays, and sometimes she would take us with. And I think my first influence on music was the church. She was, just normal Sunday, a Methodist. She came from a NG church, which is like a Dutch Reform, but for Afrikaans people here in South Africa. So she was brought up there, but because she was the way that she was, and she like the man that my dad was, she was a little bit of a rebel herself. So she moved on to a more charismatic church. And in that time, it was the Methodist that she was being involved in. So the music that I would listen to there was, the kind of normal gospel music that you hear in mainstream today. Um, and I loved the music. But there was this one time when I was very small. My mom had to remind me of this. I was 3. And the pastor was talking about Jesus, and he was telling everyone, if you want to, you want to change your life with Jesus, and you want us to pray for you, come to the front of the church, and we will pray for you, that Jesus will come into your heart, and you will meet him and have a relationship with him. And even as a 3-year-old, I seemed to be very drawn to this person that this pastor was talking about. I didn't have many influences from the church, so every time I would be in one, I would be quite interested as well to what's going on in the front. What is he talking about? Who's this man? What is he talking about? We're here. We're not always like this. We're not always doing this. So it impacted me even as a small child. And my mom said to me that when he had invited all the people to come to the front that wanted to be prayed for, I leaped off of her lap and just went running towards the front. And before she could even get up to come out and get past all the people to get out into to get to the front to come and get me, I had already reached the priest, and he had found it quite sweet, I guess, that this little child came and didn't realize it was like for an adult or something. He was quite taken back by the fact that I ran to the front. So he decided he's going to pray for me anyways, even because I did understand what he was saying, and I did love this Jesus that he was talking about. So he decided he's going to pray for me anyways. So I went home and I started learning how to sing, and I would hum the melodies of what I've heard before. I couldn't really remember all the words at that time, but whatever I could remember, I would try and sing, and I would just hum the melodies of what I was hearing. But because my dad had so much rock and roll music always playing in our house, that became the bigger influence at the end of the day, because that was what was more more around. And so eventually I decided I'm inspired. I want to become famous. I want to be a musician. I want to be a rock and roll musician, and I want to sing and be like these people that I see on the concerts and in the music videos. And that my dad encouraged, because he loved it, and he had a talent to sing, and he was in a band. When he was in the Navy, he was in the band. And yes, now that I've mentioned the Navy, I must also just tell you that the reason that he probably went to become an alcoholic was for the things that he had gone through while he was in the Navy, and in the Angolan War. And I've never been there myself, but for those who have family members who have been in some kind of military situation, they don't come back the same. Something happens there a lot of the time, and they're not allowed to always talk about it. And this was my father's situation, to cut a long story short. So that had a lot to do with the reason why he went to the bottle, and it affected my brother and I's life. But saying all of this, I just want to say, because even my dad could be watching this, that he's come a long way, and through my change, he has seen the Lord be in his life, and be in my life, be in my life. So, um, sorry, I just want to. I have a little baby, and he's calling, so let me just quickly.
It's only 12 weeks. Go.
Sorry. I do have a newborn and I have to kind of manage between. So just bear with me. Um, so yes, I was talking about my dad and the music that was influenced, and this is now the reason why he was drinking a lot, and it just progressed as he went on in the relationship. My mom making an issue about it all the time didn't help him much at all. It didn't encourage him to stop. It just made him more depressed, I guess. And so yeah, and but he had this influence from music in his day, and he thought, he was quite proud. He thought that I had a really good voice and a talent for music, so he started encouraging me to sing and to be involved in choirs and to in any kind of situation where I can be involved in singing and music. He would try and push me into those places. So I grew up into, we moved off the farms eventually, because, eventually things didn't work out for my dad, and he made trouble there where we were. So eventually we had to move from there. So we moved to my Oma, which is Afrikaans for grandmother, my mother's mother, because my mother is Afrikaans. I started off being Afrikaans and spoke Afrikaans until I went to an English school, and then the English became predominant. And because my dad was English, I ended up speaking English eventually after some time. But now, in this time that they were in a difficult situation, and it was hard for my dad to now look for a new job, my grandmother invited us to come and stay there with her. She had a nice big house, and it was just her. So she said that we can come and move into the spare rooms, and she will help them find work, and there's a good school there, so we can go to these schools. And so we moved to Amanzimtoti, which is in KZN of South Africa, and we stayed there for a good time. And that was where I really got a good influence from my granny, from the Bible. She would, my parents would have fights quite often, and sometimes it would get quite wild and quite violent. And because my grandmother was there, she was quite protective over me and my brother, and she would be the godly influence in our lives at that time. And any occasion my grandmother could tell my mom to read the Bible to us, my mom would take that and then she would start reading to us. So there was a handful of scripture that I remembered from that time that I carried with me throughout my life. But when I became, we lived with my grandmother, we moved again. My dad got a good job with his family, with his parents. They owned a company. They eventually decided to bring him in there, and he started working there. And there was 2 years that we did not have my dad in our lives. Before that happened, just before he was invited to go and do this, he was going through a very hard time. I don't think it was easy for him living with his mother-in-law, because, as much as we as Christians want to root for everyone, we can sometimes be a bit biased over our own children. And for my grandmother, she would defend my mom a lot more than she would for my dad. So my dad would feel he'd be ganged up, and he would have everyone on against him, and there's no one on his side. So he went through quite a tough time there, where he drank excessively, and he wouldn't just drink at home. He would go out to pubs, and he would get so badly drunk that he would pick fights with people and get badly beaten up. And I remember one night my mom and grandma, they were worried about him. He hadn't come home. It was 2 in the morning. So they went out looking for him, and they found him lying half beaten to death in a just in an alley somewhere, lying there full of blood. And then they decided to send him to a rehab. And after that rehab, it was a couple of months. Um, he, yeah, you can take him. After a few months of being in this rehab, he felt he needed a change. He's going to do better now. And so that's when his parents offered him this job, and he moved up to Pretoria, and worked there for 2 years with them. And at that time, that was the 2 years that we were without my dad, and we had a lot of my granny's influence in our lives. And eventually my mother, she decided, she was thinking about divorcing him at the time. And then she decided, because her mother is so influential in her life, and because she is so into the Lord and reads the Bible often, she was encouraged to fight for her marriage and not just give in and go for divorce. It's not really the godly way. So my mom tried, and she decided to go back to my dad. So we decided to move up to Pretoria and to be with my dad, and they were going to fix their marriage. And in that time, we moved what was going to be temporary into a small little townhouse that was in a very busy industrial area, not a very rich area, or just a normal area. It was quite a poor area, and it was only supposed to be temporary, as my dad was working to get enough to be able to get a place out just outside Pretoria, maybe a plot or a farm situation, because of how we lived in the farms in this farm situation. So he wanted to be able to get back into that. So we stayed in this place, and things didn't go very well. We have hope, and we try, but unfortunately, my mother and my father, it got worse and worse, and they eventually didn't get the place. We ended up staying there much longer. And the reason I mentioned this place is because a lot of the bad things that happened to me as a teenager, and a lot of the influence that I had as a teenager, happened in this kind of environment. Um, it's like, if it's dangerous. You don't go outside. There's all the wrong kind of people, and there's a lot of drugs in the area, and there's a lot of violence and theft and things like that. So that's the kind of characters that place attracts, and there's gangs and things like that. And you know, my parents were just doing what they thought was best, and they had hope, but they struggled with each other, and they ended up getting quite violent, more violent with each other. And eventually, my parents had to get divorced. I was 16 years old, and I had a job as uh, in a video shop when we used to have videos, or a DVD store. And I would, just be the teller and just help the people there. And I was on my way I was now out with my friends partying because I'm in the wrong environment. I've made friends with the people in the environment. Um, my parents they haven't been quite strong on me. They were both smokers. And eventually a friend of mine wanted to try out smoking. And she said to me, I must try with her. And, peer pressure, you're trying to be cool, or you're trying to, impress the friends that you have around you. And so I started smoking with this friend of mine, and we would just get the smokes from my parents. And my parents were quite passive, and they just blamed themselves and said, yes, it's my fault because I smoke. So then they let me smoke, and my friends would then come and visit me at my house because my parents would let them drink and allow us to drink alcohol. My dad was the cool dad, the cool dad that lets everyone just do what they want and isn't so conservative and so on their case to, try and keep them in the way. So it deep down inside, I knew this isn't right, but I'm trying to be accepted in this environment, and I'm trying to impress everyone. So I thought, I can work with this. I have a cool dad. He lets us smoke and drink, and he's so cool about everything. So let's just let's go with that. And yeah, so these influences were not any good for me. I became like a punk. I had chains on my pants, and I had these things on my arms with spikes, and my hair was dyed pitch black, and this thick dark makeup, and you're trying to be intimidating, and all these kinds of things. And rock was really an influence in my life. And then I eventually I got into a band, and I was always hanging out with these boys in this band, and we would drink beer and smoke and smoke marijuana in between all of this. And we were the cool crowd. We were the cool people. So this is just what we did, and we would hang out in places that where bands hang out, and we would hang out where there's lots of drinking and lots of drugs and all this kinds of stuff. And that became quite a big thing in my life for a bit. And it started young. I had older friends that would give me fake IDs and get me into clubs when I was 14 years old and 15 years old. So I was growing up too fast and in an environment that was very corrupt. And it really did it played on me. In the beginning, I was considered quite a softie, and I'm not the most intimidating out of everyone, but as you continue on in this environment, it's like you could call it street smarts in a way, because there's all these kinds of characters around you, including gangs. You have to put up this front. You have to put up this strong personality to keep people away from picking on you. So I eventually turned into that. We have quite a few violent people in some of our poorer areas, and I was friends with a lot of these, but if you rubbed them off the wrong way, they wanted to beat you up. And so I ended up being in fights with people, and I would get hurt and they would get hurt. And it was rough. It was really bad. So um, that was basically my teenage life and going into my early 20s. But as I got out of high school, I realized now I'm out of high school and now I need to start taking life a little bit seriously. And I had not thought about what I wanted to become. Growing up, I never imagined myself being married and have children, and do homeschooling and be the proper housewife. I never saw myself doing that. I was planning to become a big rock star, and if I couldn't be that, I did speech and drama in school. We learned a lot about plays and things, so I was going to get myself into acting, and I did a lot of modeling at that time as well. And I would have these gigs where I would do modeling and some small time acting in the background. And I was on my way to fame. That's where I was going. And that's also why I was in this band. And eventually there was this one band that was doing quite well. And they were giving auditions for a woman singer to be in their band. And I auditioned for them, and they took me. And so we went on bigger gigs where we would get noticed. And in this time, I I started realizing is this my life? Is this what I'm going to do? Because it's not just about playing music and being, loving music and singing and going to gigs. There's a lot involved in this lifestyle. There's drugs involved. There is fights involved. There is disagreements with the wrong kind of people. We just look at them in the wrong way and then you're in trouble. And I started wondering, maybe I should rethink my life. Maybe, this band thing is not exactly what I need. Um, Maybe I can put it aside as a more of a hobby, and maybe look into going to college and studying something. I didn't do bad in school, even though I had this terrible influence, and I could have turned out way worse than being kicked out of school. I seemed to keep my composure well at school, and I did well in school, and I didn't mix my school life with my dodgy life, if I can put it that way. My partying and all of that was more for the people in my neighborhood. But I went to not such a bad school in the the area where my school my grandparents got me in there, and my aunt had been in this school at one time, and it was a very pristine school. It was one of the upper class schools, and they had really great teachers and really good curriculums, and it was higher grade um, influence or subjects. So um, I seemed to have a double life, even as a teenager. I would have my dodgy home life, which was with the band and the drugs and the partying, and then I had my school life where no one would know, um, that I was like that if I went home or what I was doing in my spare time. I would just be this normal person, this average person, and I would never really get in trouble at school. Just simple things like if you didn't do your homework, or the one time I got caught with people smoking. I was smoking, but I wasn't caught smoking, so I was just punished for being in the presence of smokers. So things like that was the minor things that I got into trouble with at school. And I did pretty well in my grades. I didn't really try too hard to study or anything, but I really did enjoy paying attention and listening to the teachers, and if I could just pay attention in class and listen to what they've taught me, then it stuck. I remembered it, and then I would be able to do well in exams. So um, a lot of my friends, if they from school, if they had to see this testimony of mine, they'd be shocked that this is actually what I was getting up to when I wasn't at school. So I was very good at living this double life. And I wasn't unintelligent. I was gifted to be able to get quite far in school, and I passed always with flying colors. And eventually, now when I get out of school, um, I decided to take a gap year after high school, and I went and traveled a little bit around South Africa, and I in that time that I was traveling, I decided, I think maybe because 2010 was coming up and South Africa at that time was going to be the World Cup soccer, and we were going to host the World Cup for soccer, for football, as they call it in America. Um, and eventually, after that whole year, I decided to go into college, and I started studying tourism. And because the country was getting well known for, its tourist attractions, and so I thought, and I love traveling, and I didn't have any other idea what I wanted to be. Um, I was going to be an actress, and I wanted to go to this one college that's very pristine in Johannesburg. Um, and I was going to go and study there to become an actress, or be on stage, do plays and things like that. And my mom kind of influenced me and said to me, you never know if you're going to come right. It's not everyone that studies to be an actor is going to be successful in this. They only take a few people, and you really have to have something special to be able to get in there. So why don't you consider doing something that brings in a little bit more income, will bring in more of a sustainable income for you. So she insisted that, and she encouraged me to do the tourism instead. So eventually I decided, okay, fine. I didn't have any real direction in my life. I was already starting to go against what I thought I was going to do. And I started studying tourism. And in this time that I was studying, I realized also um, I was trying to turn over a new leaf, and I was trying to take my studies seriously and take my career options seriously. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to pursue being a businesswoman, because business was one of the main subjects that we would do in this diploma that I was doing. And I decided I've got some good business ideas, and I've done quite well with a lot of my assignments. I was top in the class there. We did a lot of practical events where we had to lead a whole tour and plan the whole tour and take actual people on a tour. And they always they choose which people are going to be in what department in the class. And the class members eventually decided that they wanted me to be their leader. And this is because I had this kind of personality that was I would answer, I would speak. I was a lot different to what I was in high school, and I started learning a little bit more about who I was, and that I don't have to, be led around. I don't have to, I actually am quite influential, and I can use that in a good way. And my classmates really adored me. They thought I was a real friendly person because in South Africa we have quite a diverse a lot of people. We have all kinds of cultures in this country. And in my class, we were the real Rainbow Nation. We were all kinds of people. I was the only white English girl in this class. There was two other Afrikaans people, a girl and a boy, another English guy, and then the rest were all kinds of Africans, even from mid-Africa to top Africa. So it wasn't all from my just my country. It was quite a people from abroad, all the way up to top Africa, even Egypt. And uh, the fact that I was so good at being able to communicate with people from different walks of life and different areas of the world, I realized I'm not as small as I thought I was. I do have a voice, and I can do something. I can lead something because I was at that time also very insecure in who I was, and I was not sure that I had really anything to give. And I was just going to go with whatever I could do and just go with that. So anyway, in that time, I started making friends with some of these people. And unfortunately, because you're in a college environment, it also comes with partying. And I ended up getting back into that because now my new friends are wanting to go to cocktail lounges and they want to have a good time over the weekend or after classes. And there again, I get myself caught into being this cool kid and just getting back into the whole partying side of things. Um, it got me into trouble um, because I found myself at a club and my one friend was picking a fight with someone. And what I thought I was going to do, which was what I intended to do, was just to go and diffuse the fight and tell them to calm down and try and stop them from fighting. But after being pushed around and rejected by the one person I was trying to reason with, I eventually just lost it. I had had enough to drink, and I hit the person. Um, and I've been in fights, but this time I really hurt this person. And then I left straight away because I knew I now I'm in trouble. And I just left with my friends, and we just brushed it off and thought, it's nothing. And the next Monday morning, the police were at my door and they arrested me. And here I am being arrested and taken to jail for grievously bodily harm, for an assault that injured someone to the point where they needed to go to hospital, and they had some permanent injuries that they were going to have to tend to. And I had a reality check. I realized that who have I become? What is happening to me? Um, I'm just letting life sort of control me and take me and make me who it wants me to be. Society, instead of, and by the environments that I'm in, and I'm not having the self-control. And I was really scared because they had to pay quite a bit of money for me to get bail to be able to get out. And then I needed to get a lawyer to be able to defend me, or I was going to go to prison for a little while. And this also paused my studies. And I couldn't show up for a lot of my exams, and it was my last year. So I wasn't going to graduate that year because I couldn't make it for half my exams, and because I had to feature in court often. And this reality check, I started wondering, what am I going to do with my life? And my mom at that time was in a church, and she was trying to, find the Lord more importantly, and have him more influenced in her life because her and my father had eventually got divorced. Um, and um, my mom was feeling lonely, and she wanted to, she thought at first that she needed to be in a relationship to not be lonely, but she realized, with her mother's influence, that God is who you really need. So she was in this church at this time that I was going through this terrible time. And I was crying to her and I was saying to her, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do. You know, one simple move and you think you're going to do something right. And then the next thing you end up being the bad person and doing the most damage. And it can happen so quickly. And this is what alcohol does to you. It really takes away all your your morals and your what you know is right. And so my mom said to me, you know what? There is a man in the Bible who also was in prison for a little while. Maybe you should read the books of him that he wrote. And she told me about Paul. And I read a little bit about Paul. And I thought, you know, I like this man because he's so direct and to the point, and he's not so passive as I would expect Christians to be. Because I had this whole perspective of Christians growing up that, especially in my young youth time, I would believe that Christians were these soft people that were easily manipulative and well, easy to manipulate and were naive and didn't know the real world like I knew it, you know, this dangerous world that I'm from. So I found them quite passive and a joke. And I wasn't going to listen to some friendly Christian who wants to tell me about Jesus and how he can save my life, because frankly, I didn't think that this person could even understand life because you know, I would see them as these people who grew up Christian their whole life. They were protected from bad things. They were they never had real bad experiences in their life to be able to really look at life in a more in a you know more sober way. So I wasn't gonna take advice from Christians, and anyone could come along and tell and say, you know, here's a book, read it. And I was just gonna say, yeah, no, sure, I'll read it, and then I'd put it somewhere or throw it away. I wouldn't have bothered. Um, if it was gonna change me, it was gonna have to be something a little bit more deeper, more personal. Um, because I was a bad girl. I was tough. I was rough, and rough on the edges, and I needed mercy. And I wasn't going to get it in a normal environment with average people that know that um,
Yeah.
yeah, that know that you know what right and wrong is. Because me growing up, I wasn't taught this is wrong and this is right, or live by these morals or standards, and I was just sort of left to figure it out on my own. My parents were going through their own issues, so they didn't really have the time to counsel me in life, really. And when I got in trouble and things, my dad wouldn't really take it seriously. He's the most disciplined one. I mean, the one that was disciplining us in the house, and he would he would just sort of like brush it off. I did something wrong. Yes, okay, but my girl.
Okay. 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 Carry
Um,
on. You're right.
so sorry, we just have to go with the things. Otherwise, I'm going to have to wait for a couple of years before I can give my testimony. Um, my dad would just, you know, brush things off and he'd be like, oh, you know, my girl, I know you're a tough girl, so you can fight, defend yourself. And it was more like he was encouraging me to be that way. Or he was proud of me being that way. Um, and yeah, so I eventually had to go through all these court sessions and I read a little bit about Paul, but it didn't really fully impact me. I was there for a moment and I felt like I needed God for a moment to save me because I'm in a bad place. And then again, if everything goes fine, then you know you can put God back on the shelf and you don't have to worry about him until another bad thing happens. And then you can take him down from the shelf and you can ask him some nice things and you can read a little bit about him and you can be a good person for a little bit. And then when that's all done and you're back into a good space, then you can put him back on the shelf. So that was the kind of person that I was being at that time. There wasn't a real life experience. I didn't have a real wilderness experience, even though this situation with me being arrested should have been a big wake up call, and my wilderness experience, it wasn't just yet. And the Lord knows me, and He allowed me to go through these things. And I can just imagine when if I have to get to eternal life and see what the angels have done to save my life and how many times. Um, there's many occasions that things could have gone wrong, and I know now that God was protecting me. So I'm going to try and jump a little bit here because I just want to give you a little bit of a sort of a background on who I was. Um, that you know that I wasn't just a normal average person that did a few bad things here and there. I did a lot of bad things. And I was encouraged to do bad things. And I had all the wrong influences. I was involved with people that were in gangs and that sold drugs and that were drug abusers and all these kinds of things. So now I'm in prison. I was arrested. I was out, and now I have to go to court, and I have to now be defended. And by the grace of God, and I believe by the prayers of my mother, mother's prayers are really heard. Um, I was let off. The case was closed. I only had to pay a fee to be able to assist this person in getting um, being getting some what you call it plastic surgery to kind of help them get better. I'm not very proud of it at all, and I don't really bring it up very often. I try to forget of these things that I used to do. After that, I got a chance at my, I got, I'm just going to close the door here. Um, I got an opportunity at my college to complete my diploma and finish off by doing my last exams. Um, and because my lecturers respected me so well, and because I did so well in my studies, again, living a two double life, this crazy lifestyle on the side, but in classes, I'm just this normal person that can be hired in a normal environment for a normal career, and I can perform really well. So my lecturers decided to take the benefit of the doubt and give me the opportunity, not make me go through the whole course again, and let me just write my exams and then they would pass me. So God had gifted me with a few skills to be able to at least show another side of my character. And I think that these people were godly people, my lecturers, because I think the Lord gave them discernment to see that there was something in me that could be better. And I just needed to be given that opportunity and that chance. So after I finished my college, I had my diploma, and I decided that I'm going to go do, because you have to do a couple of hours internship so that you can fully be qualified in your curriculum or in your certificate, whatever you with your um, can't think of the word qualification. To get your qualification, you need to do these hours, practical hours. So I had been dating a guy at the time, and I decided to go with him because he had a family that had a 4-star holiday lodge at the coast and in Titicaca. And he was going to him and his family were going to give me the opportunity to do my hours there. And then we can, with the promise that we would run a part of that lodge. So I did my hours with them. I got my certification, and I started working and living in this holiday resort. Unfortunately, this is the place where I was convinced that there was no Jesus. The little that I believed in Jesus wasn't strong enough, seeing as I didn't really have a real relationship with him, and I never really met him. I just heard of him. Um, my foundation was completely broken down. The guy I was dating was a New Age believer. He came from a family that was, some of them were Masons. They were occult believers. They were in Theosophical Society, which is basically witchcraft. And they convinced me through their theologies and their doctrines and their magic, if I can put it that way, that there is no Jesus, that it's a lie, and that the Christian world is just lying to you to hide what they're really doing, which is a money agenda, and it's about oil, and it's about power, and it's got nothing to do with a real God. And they completely convinced me through their theology that you whatever you do in this life is just a test. Um, you can do bad, you can do good. It's all just learning experiences in the school of life. And when you die, you get reincarnated and you can come back as a different person, or you can come back as an animal or a cloud, whatever you want. And you're going to be all right. Like it's just a learning curve. And it got so deep to the point where this belief got me to believe, because especially in New Age, you're kind of allowed to go anywhere with your belief. You can add any religion to this belief. Just don't do Christianity. That's the only thing. So you can have a bit of Hinduism in there, and you can have a bit of Buddhism in there, and you can have a bit of witchcraft and all these other things. And Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology and all these things become a reality. And then there's even believing in aliens and how these aliens are higher beings and they've taught us things from the ancient days and they've given us the technologies and the wisdom that we have today and things like that. So it became a real mixed belief. And there was a lot of witchcraft. There was throwing of bones. There was reading tarot cards. There was a medium that would tell you your future. And we could tell our future. And we led meditations. And I got into meditations. And I started working with crystals and the energies of crystals and all these things that I was practicing. And we would go to trance parties. And trance parties is where you take hallucinogenic drugs and you hallucinate and you believe you're having a spiritual experience somehow. And you believe that you can time travel and you believe that you can influence the future and you believe you can influence the minds of others. And the scary thing is that you can. You can influence the minds of others, but it's not you because you have these spirits that lead you, these spirit guides, and they come in different forms. They don't have to be people, or they can be animals. And so basically, I was a glorified witch, and I was teaching people to lead their own lives, and you can decide your own future. Let me just see if I can get my settled. Yeah. Thanks, man. Okay. Thanks. This is my daughter, Hope. Okay, so let me just.
Coming up. Okay.
Can I just take a 2-minute break? I just want to settle him down without talking. Can you just keep everyone? I'm just going to take a 2-minute break just quickly. Baby is a bit uncomfortable, so I'm just
Toilet break.
So just give me 2 minutes. Maybe James can just keep you company for a moment. Sorry.
I've been hearing, I know her testimony for a long time now. I'm sure it's been quite fascinating. And I hope, yeah, we can gain encouragement from it and know that we all have a story. We all have something that we can compare with one another and share with one another and encourage one another through it all. Anyway, I need the toilet because I've been holding the baby. So give us 2 minutes and we'll be back. All right, and we're back.
Okay. I was saying that we went to trance parties and we would have hallucinogenic drugs and we would feel this is now a spiritual situation. And a lot of what happened there made me scared. I found myself seeing creatures inside people. I would see people walking around with beast heads. And at first I thought maybe there's something wrong with my eyes. Maybe I just need to rub my eyes. I need to look better.
Sure.
And yeah, so I realized there's something a little bit strange here. And I'm going to give him to you for a second. Just to,
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so get back to Now I'm, in this environment where I'm with this person that I'm dating, and their entire family believes in this, believed in this spiritual uh, life that we're living that's not Christian, and it's actually very against Christian, but it welcomes every other religion. So I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. Um, while I'm in this situation, I'm also, my moral standard has gone even lower because I had been through this whole situation when I was in college and I was arrested, and now I thought I'm going to better my life. And I thought that this new religion that I have is going to make me a better person. But and I always want to, and it taught you also to be genuine, to be real with people. And what that entails is whatever you think and whatever you feel and whatever's going on inside, just be transparent about it. And whoever's in your life and accepts it is the ones who are meant to be there, and who's that don't are not, and they must just go. Um, and it did teach me something. It taught me to be real with myself. Because I realized at that time that I actually wasn't being real with myself. I was living in this pretentious life. I was thinking myself someone and acting like someone to others, but in my personal time, I'm somebody else. So I realized that I needed some correction in my own life, and I needed to be who I am and be it outwardly as well, and not just inwardly. So it did teach me that, but the unfortunate thing is that it didn't teach me any morals, and I was just uh, led to believe that whatever I do is okay, and I can decide whatever that is okay. Um, so eventually, after some time, we were working at Titsicom. I think it was 2 years, and then I decided I'm going to leave here, and we're gonna go back to Pretoria. And my boyfriend at the time, he had a better job offer opportunity in Pretoria. Things were not working out so well with us with family in at Titicaca, because he was a family member of his family, family in a business environment can clash. And so that was what was happening, but not in such a serious way. It was just we decided we needed to do something different. So we left there and we came back to Pretoria. And my boyfriend got a good job. He's a architect, and I had done quite a lot of work in between all of this. I didn't mention my careers, the things that I had been doing. But I had worked in quite a few environments. By then, I had done quite a bit of sales. I was doing the tourism. I was working in a lodge. I was doing marketing, all kinds of things you have to do in a holiday lodge. Working with the clients, I would take them on guided tours and things like that. So I gained a lot of life skills and skills for work and for business. And I was very good at working with people. So when I got back to Pretoria, I got a very good job in Loftus Versfeld, which is the Blue Bulls, the rugby team. I would work in the rugby stadium, and I would work with all the call centers. I would manage the call center, and then I eventually progressed to a suite liaison, and I worked with clients that would buy a suite for the year, which was a bar and the VIP seats where people can live. So like businesses would usually be the ones that I'd be working with there. So I had a really good job there, and after some time, agent that is a sports agent decided that he was going to offer me a job because I was already working with Blue Bulls and with the sports players and with the people in general there that run the show. So he needed a personalized PA that would basically run everything for him because he traveled a lot. So basically, I would do, I would get everyone's visas right, and I would organize their travel to wherever they were going, their flights, their hotels where they're staying. I would organize them their what do you call it? The people that sponsored them. I would organize their shirts, their shoes, their entire gear. They would have to do promotions for certain companies, like coffee companies or health drinks and stuff like that. So that's I did a lot of stuff. And I would be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would have to organize a flight or change a flight because someone missed a flight or something. So my job at that time entailed quite a lot, and it took a lot of my time that I actually didn't have much time to social life. And it was a time in which I could grow up a little. Um, because before I did all this work, but it was very social orientated. So at this time when I'm now working at for this big businessman, and I have to take things very seriously, and there's a lot of responsibilities that I have, and I have to be the face of this place, and you can't have any scandals or any kind of, you can't get up to any good. I mean, get up to any bad, because that will eventually leak out, and then it looks bad for the agent, it looks bad for the players. So it was a big push for me to just grow up, stop your nonsense, and take life a little more seriously, and take your profession and your status a little bit more seriously. So I worked there for a good time, and in that time, it was a very stressful job. And I started wondering, do I want to be in this environment? I mean, I've been in a corporate environment for a little while. I worked in insurance before that. Um, I think I worked in insurance before I actually started studying, because when I said I took a gap year, I didn't just not just travel around and have a holiday. I actually worked a little bit. And even before I left, while I was in college, I was working a job as well. So I had some good working influence before then. But when I was working with this now Loftus place, and I've got all this responsibility, it was high stress. It was very stressful. And you barely had good sleep. You didn't have a social life. You didn't really have much of a personal life at all. Your whole life revolved around these famous guys, and you have to just run their entire life. Um, and it eventually took a toll on me, and I decided I'm going to look into something else. And because I had studied business, I was always looking to start my own business at some point in my life. Because I saw myself now moving from being a musician now to, I want to be a businesswoman. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to work towards being that. And I started a business plan with two friends of mine, and my boyfriend. And we started a renovations company, a construction and renovations company. So basically, I would run the admin, I would make the quotes, I would speak to the clients, I would be doing most of the FaceTime with everyone. And then the guys would just rock up and, do the work. Um, Jared, my boyfriend at the time, the he was the he was the one running everything to do with the construction and with the renovations. And we also did a lot of renovations of the suites in Loftus, because we had a lot of connections there. So because of that good work that we did there, it gave us a good name. And so we could do this business quite well, because we were already known by quite a few people that could be word of mouth and could help get us further. Because marketing is great, but the best marketing is always word of mouth. But besides that, that's just so we did that, and now we're doing our running this business, and everything is fine. Everything's great. And eventually we all move into this one house. It was a very big house and on a big property. And we decided we're going to run the business from there. And it was going to be more affordable for us to be able to gain a better income faster, to all stay in the same place. And then we work from that place as the home base. So it ended up becoming a disaster. First reason is family working with family doesn't always work, and neither does friends working with friends. You're going to lose friends doing that. Especially in this situation, because there would be two or three different projects at a time, and then our friends would have to split. And then it became like a competition, and one thinks he knows better than the other, and they want to advise each other, and it became quite a little bit difficult. And what was also the problem was that if we were living together, we were doing our social life together as well. And here comes all the alcohol, and here comes all the drugs. And when we look again, we're in a mess. Business is doing all right, but our own personal lives is not doing very well. And we are getting far too comfortable making a good income that we've made for ourselves and using that to now celebrate. And the religious side of things, where I was now doing this esoteric, pagan, basically, belief, and practicing witchcraft and all these things, it started affecting my dreams, where I would have these vivid dreams. Now, I mentioned that I had done all these rituals, and I did all the throwing of the bones and all these like little rituals that you do. And I'm not mentioning all of them, but one of them that I must mention is astral travel, technical remote viewing, and lucid dreaming. And the reason I mention that is because that is when you try and take yourself out of your body and you start to communicate with other with other spirits. And there was, they would train you how to do this astral travel, for example, because that what you would do is you would be in an awake state, and you would go from that awake state to a sleep state, but then your mind would wander into a spiritual place. And I always was going to try it, and every time I would try it, I had this bad feeling, and I almost had this image of something at the end of my bed sitting there waiting for me. So that would scare me, and then I wouldn't do it. But what I did do was when I was dreaming, I would realize I am in a dream, and then I would try to control my dream. And then I would try and see what is this dream and try and be in control of my own subconscious. And things started happening in that situation where I started finding myself meeting different spirits, or I can almost say I had a shaman once come to my dreams, and he attacked me. He was beating me. He was trying to attack me. And it was a very scary situation. And then I would have a dream where I would see, because we would believe in this belief that you have different versions of yourself and you're trying to reach your higher self, the best version of yourself. And there's many different versions of you, and you can meet along your way, and they can help you become the better you. I know better now. I know that this is actually demonic forces, but at that time it was pretty real. And I would have dreams where these other versions of me that are far older and different age groups. And the one time I dreamt that I came out of a door and I saw them with a fire pit, and they're all gathering around there, but it looked as if they were waiting for someone. And as soon as I appeared to them, I realized they were waiting for me, and they were so happy to see me, and they were like, "Oh, wow, Samantha." And I just got this bad, evil, sinking feeling inside of me, like something's terribly wrong. And I actually I walk away from them, and I'm about to close the door. And as soon as I closed the door, there was this dark, demonic hand that came in and tried to stop me from closing the door. And I'm trying to now get away from this creature, and I eventually wake up. But I'm sweating, and I feel like I was paralyzed. There was some demonic influence happening over me. And this happened often. There was a lot of little scary things. There was an owl that appeared to me that that looked at me with this hate, and it would try and pull me out of my body, and I could feel something's wrong. This shouldn't be happening. And then I would escape, but I felt like it was something that was trying to take my spirit, or take my conscious mind away and take control of it. And so I was just being saved by these things. And I started realizing scripture that I grew up when I was small, that my grandmother used to read to me, that I remember just small pieces that started coming to me in that time. And I realized, but this is written in the Bible. I remember this as a child. It would say things like, I can't remember all of it now, but it would talk a lot about the things that would happen in the end days. And everyone would believe the same belief, and would all be following after one kind of belief. And this belief that I was having at the time was becoming quite popular. And today, most people actually believe this. And they call it different things. They even call it woke. but basic and pagan beliefs and so on. And also because it's pagan, there's so many different kinds of pagan roots that people can decide they want to be more into the Norse thing, or they want to be more into the Egyptian thing, or they can really pick and choose where they want to go today. But back then it was really just messed up and all together and whatever you felt like on the day. So, okay, so these things were happening to me. These demonic things were starting to happen to me. And I started recalling scripture that would make me question what I'm going through. And this belief that I had, they would always tell me that everything is that everything you see is actually an illusion. It's not actually real, and you can create your own reality. Um, uh, and then I started hearing this voice saying, what if this belief is the illusion? What if this thing that you're seeing? Because what I realized also with the scripture coming to mind is this pagan lifestyle, this new age belief, this witchcraft, this satanic world is very real. It's very real, and it's very powerful, and it's very dangerous and very scary. And it's very real. I have to say that. If you believe in supernatural, sometimes us as Christians, we can believe, but we struggle to see that supernatural side of things. And we never dive deep enough. But coming from a satanic lifestyle and a witchcraft lifestyle, you fully believe these things. You fully believe them. And that's when spirits can manifest in front of you. Demons can manifest in front of you. They can manifest in front of you as your dead relatives. They can manifest in front of you in a form of a beast of some kind. And they come across as your friends. They come across as someone that cares about you and wants to help you reach your best potential. So when I realized that that place is so real, I started asking myself, if that is real, then God must be real too. So I started saying things that made people awkward around me. They would say, I feel so terrible, like they rejected me and they didn't care about me, some scenario. And then I would say, yeah, but don't you think that's how God feels? Don't you think that the world has kind of made him look like the bad guy? And people would look at me puzzled and wonder now, why are you bringing up God? You are God. I am God. We are all God. We are just God in different forms, experiencing life and learning about life and whatever. That's the kind of belief we had. But I was saying, no, God is the creator, and maybe he feels that he loves us so much and he's trying to reach us, but we're just ignoring him and thinking that he's the bad guy. So I started relating to there could be a God. And my mom came to visit me the one day and she decided to share a book with me. I can't even remember what book it was, but it was a book on someone that had I think it was an Indian lady that turned to a Christian, and the book was called I Dared to Call Him Father. And this book was about her experience of coming to Jesus and how she was so persecuted by her own family and so on. But I didn't go full in depth with the story, but I recognized certain things because of the environment I was in and the kind of belief that I was in and the people that were influencing my life and the kind of negativity that we had and that they had, especially on Jesus, for example. Like we could even be okay with God, but we cannot speak about Jesus. Jesus is not something that we talk about. Um, so that was interesting. And eventually I started secretly, without anyone knowing in my life, not even my boyfriend, I started secretly reading the Bible and started looking into maybe there is something there. And I started watching videos that would prove scientifically because I loved science and I would try and, use science and quantum physics to try and prove my.
So you were sucking my finger hard there.
Yeah.
So you were saying?
Um, yeah, so
Babies are so confused.
newborns, new environment for them.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No. So I'm reading this Bible secretly and I'm looking into scientific proof. Prove to me that God is real. scientifically. And I started finding things that was proving God real. Because I was looking into God secretly without anyone knowing, something strange started happening around me. Everyone around me started treating me differently. And there was no logical reason for the reason why they were treating me this way. Attacks out of nowhere. I started noticing it more and more. And I started hearing a voice say to me, even before the time something bad was about to happen, I would have this knowing it was going to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised. I got to a place there in that time where I was fed up with everything. And even though I was looking into God, I didn't have anyone to explain to me anything, and I was doing it in secret. And I was not yet 100% convinced.
So it seems very confused.
Okay.
He did, but I booked him. And they were busy doing praise and worship, and then he was just stuck in on my finger like crazy. I'll try again. Sorry, it was
Okay, so what I'm having these attacks from these people, even my boyfriend. And I fell into a deep depression. I think it had a lot to do with the drugs I was taking at the time as well, because you have your highs and then you have your very, very lows. And this was becoming a norm, so I fell into a deep, deep depression. And I felt no one cared about me anymore. And especially because of the way people were treating me, because I was looking into the Lord. But I didn't realize half the time that it's because I was looking into God's things that I'm being attacked. I just thought, so I'm doing something wrong. There's something terrible with me, and everyone hates me, and no one cares about me. And I found myself in that situation in a bamboo forest. And I went there alone because I was about to end my life. I decided my life didn't turn out the way I wanted to. It's nothing special about me. Everyone hates me. No one cares about me. And I started saying that out loud. I said, no one cares about me. If I had to die right now, no one would even know. No one would even care. It wouldn't even matter. Um, it might even be a while before anyone's noticed I'm gone. No one would care. No one wants me. It doesn't even matter. And then I hear this voice loud and clear as I'm in frantic, crying, saying, no one would care. I just have to die. No one cares. No one wants me. And then I hear this voice say, I care. I'm here. And it startled me. It stopped me. It stopped me right in my tracks. And I'm like, who was that? What was that? It's me, Jesus. Why don't you give your life to me? I can show you a new life. And I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to this and I'm crying and I'm like, I'm feeling like this is the most accepting words I've ever heard in my entire life. In this time where I thought there was no one and I thought that nothing mattered and I didn't matter. And I'm about to end my life and someone fights for my life and I don't even know this person. But they love me. I can tell that they love me so much that love me more than love I've ever experienced. So I sat there a little bit in that space, in that presence. Sorry. That presence of someone fighting for my life when no one cared about it, not even me. So I decided to get up and go back and try again. And let me look into Jesus. Let me see if I'm not crazy, that this was Jesus talking to me. And I go back, and not even a day, and my dad comes to visit me. And there's a lot of fighting going on in that house and a lot of rejection towards me. And I am crying. And my dad's there. And my dad, he believes in Jesus, but he didn't really fully practice anything. But the Lord used him in that one time, in that one space. And God can use whoever he wants at any time. That I've been shown. That my dad said to me, my girlie, I feel as if God is saying that you need to leave this place. And I just knew, yes, if I'm not happy with the life that I have, then things have to change. And if I've been trying everything my own way all this time and all these other beliefs, then I was already going to kill myself. What have I got to lose? Let me take a big leap of faith and go in this direction. So I packed my bag. I had a scooter at that time, a motorcycle. I got on it and I left that house. I left all my furniture, all my belongings, all my books, everything I left behind. The only thing I took with me was, and I was still playing music at the time and my guitar and everything. I left everything. I just took um, my bag of clothes and I left. And I stayed with my dad for a little time, but my dad was remarried and his wife she had her own kids and she was not comfortable with me in my emotional state, trying to figure out my life. And I don't have a job now because I left my whole entire life behind and she doesn't know why. She's not comfortable with me being there. So she encouraged my dad to find me somewhere to stay. My mom at the time was not in a good situation. Um, she was not working at the time. She was working for my grandfather, my dad's parents. She ended up working there as well. And she wasn't making a lot of an income. Um, so she couldn't at the time afford her own place. And so she, for a little time, was staying with one of her friends in their backyard garden, in their garden flat that they had, their garden cottage. And she was staying there with her new husband. And my dad spoke to her and asked that I can come stay by her. Um, so basically, I'm now staying with my mom, but by the permission of this other friend of hers. And it was very uncomfortable because they knew the kind of person I was. And they were afraid that, I'm going to cause trouble, I'm going to bring trouble. So they weren't very comfortable with me being there and me being emotional and trying to figure out my life. It wasn't making things very easy either. So I basically felt homeless. And I would then eventually leave and go and visit friends I hadn't seen in a long time. And I would stay one day at one friend, and then I would stay again at another friend. And I was homeless. I was lost. I was in a very, very bad place. And I had to make a plan. I had to make a plan and figure out now what am I going to do? I cannot be in this situation. I was in a good financial situation where I was, but I was not in a good lifestyle situation and emotional. I mean, I had already tried to end my own life. So um now I'm here at my mom's place and things are not looking good. And I'm wondering, well, God, where are you? I've left. I'm trying to look for you. Where are you? I need you. And one day I was walking past my mom's husband's desk, and he would tell me sometimes a little bit about God, but I would always just brush him off, and all kinds of reading material he would give me, I would just brush off. Um, I wasn't going to look into reading, and if I was going to read anything, it would be whatever I'm interested in. And I wasn't interested in reading something that some Christian man wants to give me. So I was not very kind about the situation, but um, he did try a few times. So I realized, you know, he might have something to say about the Lord. But I walked past his desk and I saw this article on his that he had printed that was sitting on his desk. Um, And I just read the title and it said Light versus Light. And I thought this is interesting because the kind of religion or kind of belief that I had before the time was this: we are of the light, and it's a light um, religion. But it wasn't. There was many dark things about it, but they would always call it good and call it light. That was their favorite word, was this light. Um, so I read it, and it was written by a man by the name of Walter Weiss. And now I know who he is, but at that time I didn't have a clue. But it was just a random article that he had discovered. And it really moved me. It really moved me. It was all about, at the end, it's going to be a counterfeit that's going to be against the real Christ and his true followers. And the only way we're going to be able to tell the difference and know how to be on the right end of things is to know the word of the Lord, to know the Bible, and to know him personally. Um, so after reading that, I was inspired. I felt moved. I thought, I want to be baptized. I desperately want to be baptized. And I want Jesus in my heart. I want him in my life. And I want to learn more about him. So I was slowly looking into him, but I felt extremely lonely. I felt I needed a friend. I felt like God needed to send me a friend and someone who knows him that can help me get to know him too. So I was praying for that. I was praying for someone that God knows and has a relationship with, that wouldn't judge me and wouldn't push me aside because of the situation I'm in, but just to show me who Jesus is and guide me in the right direction. And one day I was walking around in the neighborhood where my mom was, and I was just taking a long walk, and I'm praying and I'm asking God now to reveal himself to me and to bring a friend into my life. And I heard that voice again, and he said to me, "You're gonna meet someone, and he walks the streets regularly." And in that moment, I'm thinking, oh, it's someone right here. And I start looking around like, who's in the streets? Who's this person I'm supposed to meet? And well, no, that's not at all what he was saying. He was just saying it's someone that does walk the streets. But I realized later what that actually meant. So I now get into contact with a friend of mine that I met in my bad world, but she had also come out of it. And her and I had something in common. So I get into contact with her and I tell her, look, I'm not in this lifestyle anymore. I've walked away from everyone. I left everything behind. I'm trying to look into Jesus and try and change my life. I'm looking for a new a new job or something, and perhaps somewhere I need to stay. But now I don't have my work anymore, and so I don't really have anywhere to stay except by my mom. So it was coming to a holiday season, and I thought what would be the smartest move for me would be if I find a house and pet sitting situation. And then I can just take care of the house and the pets. And in that time, I have somewhere to stay while I'm finding a job. Um, and I asked my friend because she was house sitting at the time in the holidays. It's just something extra to do in the holiday time and it brings extra income. So, because we're still young, people love to hire people that are young, they don't have a family. So I thought this would be a good thing for me to just get a change of scenery, be in a good environment, have a responsibility, and give me some time to also just look into finding a new job at the time. So I go see this friend of mine. She invites me over, and we get talking about things, and we're sharing testimonies and how Jesus, is personally calling us out of this lifestyle and so on. But at this time, we don't really know much about him except the personal experiences that we've had with him. And it's been more of a life-saving situation, and don't do this and come out of there and come and pursue me and learn more about me and that kind of thing. But we haven't learned the real Bible truths about him. Um, so in that time, I said to her, don't you maybe know of any house sitting jobs that I can do in this time? She said, no, she doesn't. But then she realized, wait a minute, I know a friend of mine who does house and pet sitting, and he has his own house and pet sitting business. Um, maybe he can help you. And she looks at her husband and she says, James. And her husband looks at her and he says, he freaks out. He gets excited and he jumps up and he says, Sam, you need to meet James. I don't know why I never thought of this before, but you guys have to meet each other. And I just sort of in that moment, I kind of had this knowing that this is the friend that the Lord was mentioning, but you're not 100% sure. You have that impression, but you're not sure. Um, and so they introduced me. They invite him over the one day, and they introduced him to me. And I remember the first time I met James, um, when I looked at his face, he looked different to everyone else. Um, he had this this bright face, almost as if there was a light shining on him. And I know it sounds crazy, but it was so refreshing, and it was just this refreshing, genuine face that I saw. And we just started talking, and we got along really well. And he was just so open and so friendly. I've never met someone like this before. I've never met someone that at first is so friendly and so kind and so patient and not judgmental. And I could tell him anything. And eventually we're sitting for hours chatting. And um, I decided that I was going to see him again and sit and talk to him, because there was just this comfortable feeling that I had around him. I felt accepted by him, and I didn't want to get away from that. I felt safe around him. So I didn't want to get away from that. It's the only thing I've ever experienced in my life. I want to be around this person, and I want to know what they know, because he says he knows God. And so I see him again another time, and I'm chatting to him, and he wants to know a little bit more about me and my personal life. And I start telling him stuff, and it ends up me going into some of the parts I would never tell anyone. I would never, a new person that I meet, tell them all these deep things about me and these things I've made mistakes on, and this the situation in my life and my family. And um, I just burst into tears, and I ended up telling him so much deep. And I thought, this guy thinks I'm crazy. He's going to tell me, listen, chick, you are nuts. There's the door. I don't want to know you. This is a bit too much. And I'm waiting for it to happen, and it's just not happening. And he's just looking at me with this tears in his eyes, and this love and this understanding. I've never in my life experienced this. And I just want to know more. And he starts sharing me a little bit about himself and about the word. Like I'll say something about where I believe something, and then he will tell me the Bible says this and this. And then I'd be like, that's interesting. I never knew that. And but if you do bad things and you burn in hell, and he'd be like, yeah, but hell is actually not, a place where you burn for eternity. Um, it's an event, it's a time, it's death. And I things he's sharing with me, and I'm like, but this is not what I learned when I was around Christians, or this very little time that I was in church. I never learned these things. They told us about, when you die, you go either to heaven or to hell. And now you're sharing me these other things, and he would share other things with me as well that was had to do with my current situation. And I would say to him, no way, I can't believe it. Is that really written in the Bible? He'd be like, yes, let me show you. And then I'd have someone read to me the Bible in a way I've never heard the Bible before. And it was like Jesus was coming out alive and becoming real to me in my life. And I was just falling deeply in love with Jesus, and this new, refreshing way to see him. And he's the one the one that was talking to me all along and was trying to save me. And I remember him from different occasions in my life where I'd heard him before, but I didn't know who that was, and I didn't know if it was my own thoughts or whatever it was I was believing at the time. But now I can recognize by what I'm reading and what James was sharing with me all the time that this was the real Jesus that I'm getting to know. And I can hear him as James we would have a chat about something, and then he would just say, that makes me remember this scripture. And then he'll go to it, and he'll share it with me. And what happened eventually was I was so interested in knowing so much about the Bible. I just didn't want to, I would sit there for hours and days, and I could not get enough. Eventually, James would leave me house sitting a place, and he would give me a whole lot of DVDs, and I would sit and go through all of them. A whole day, I would just sit and go through all these DVDs on all the Bible teachings and all the Bible truths, and I was just taking it all in and taking it all in. And then I learned about the health message and how you can be better, and I was very underweight because of it, all the drug abuse that I had done. I was not eating well, I was barely eating, and I was skin and bone. So when he showed me this health message, I started taking it. I just took it and I just started getting the vegetables and started trying new things, and I was so excited for this new life and this new love. And I just wanted to give my whole life to Jesus, and I just wanted to change everything about me. And uh, that means that I'm going to have to stop taking drugs. I'm going to have to stop partying. I'm going to have to stop drinking. I'm going to have to stop everything and just be this person that Jesus wants me to be, and he has a better version for me. And uh, James would go on a lot of dog walks, and because I wanted to pick his brain often about these things, about God, and where do you know, and where do you go in the Bible to find out this and this, and this situation, how do you deal with it? What does the Bible say? And so I would end up going on these walks with James when he would go take dogs for a walk, and I would find myself taking walks with this man on the street. And then I remembered when the Lord said to me that the friend I'm sending you is a man that is on the streets regularly. And I thought maybe it's a hobo, maybe it's a homeless person, or maybe someone that's in real trouble in their life. And it wasn't at all the case. I was the one that was in trouble. I was the homeless one. And I meet this person, and he's on the streets often. And the most beautiful thing was this character that I would see. He was just this ordinary guy. He didn't care about any status in life. He seemed to not be bothered about it at all, which was also very strange for me. And he just loved God, and he just taught God day and night. And I thought, this would be bad. Like, people would tell him to stop at some point, because it might be too much. But for me, it was like living water. It was like bread of life. It was giving me life, sustenance, and I couldn't get enough of it. And I was just sitting at the edge of his words and hearing him and how he knew Jesus and how he knew so much about him. And he would stop past, he would walk past gardeners that are working, or a lot of people that are working small time jobs, common jobs that don't pay a lot. And he would just say, "Hi, brother, how are you doing? How's the Lord blessed you today?" And then he would share a testimony with me, and I'd be standing there for a little while and watching him minister to some other person. And I thought, this is amazing. I have never in my life experienced this before. I've never met a Christian like this before. And the one day comes and he says to me, "By the way, I just want to tell you, I don't go to church on Sunday. I go to church on a Saturday." I said to him, "Yeah, I've heard of this before. I've heard of this. I've come across this before, that the Sabbath is actually a Saturday." He said, "Yeah, that is the fourth commandment." And I thought, what? That's a commandment? I never even knew that was one of the commandments. And actually, I don't come to think of it, I don't really know the commandments at all. I know maybe don't kill and don't steal, but that's about it. What else is there? There's 10, so I must learn them. So he shared that with me, and then he said to me, "Would you like to come with me to church?" And then I felt a little awkward because I thought, "Oh, church. My experience with church is not good at all. Um, those are the most pretentious people I've ever met in my life." That was my perspective. And I thought, "Oh, here we go. Gonna go to his church. I'm gonna meet his people. He's gonna want me to be part of his church, and I'm gonna be so changed." And I started going more of my worldly thinking, because of my own personal experiences with churches. And I've had some bad experiences with some pastors in my life, um, inappropriate situations for a pastor to be doing to young girls. So I did not have a good view on a Christian, on a church, or a pastor. But I heard that voice say, "Just go." And I thought, okay, I really don't want to, and it's Saturday. I mean, I could be doing so many better things on a Saturday. Now I'm gonna give it up to go to church. That sounds like fun. Um, but I decided, you know what? He's so nice, and he's so kind to me, and he's given up so much of his personal time to me for me to learn about Jesus, that I have to just, give him something. Like, you give him the benefit of the doubt and go with him. to church. And I go with him to church, and I go to this small little church, and I walk in there, and we were a little late. So we ended up coming in right at the end of the service. So James didn't want to come in and make a noise or disturb the service. So we just waited for it to finish. And we were going to meet everyone because it was going to be lunchtime now. And he wanted to just introduce me to some of the people in the church. And he takes me into the kitchen and he starts introducing me. Hi, everyone. This is Samantha, my friend. Um, uh, this is her first time here. And they were just so friendly and so welcoming. I felt I didn't feel like it was just a normal church. It was a lot more inviting. Um, and some of the people made me feel a little uncomfortable. They would come to me and say, "Hello, Samantha, are you an SDA?" And I don't even know what that means because James has not even explained to me yet what SDA means or, Seventh-day Adventist. He was just sharing me a relationship with God and the Bible truth. So he wasn't saying, look, when I met him, he didn't say, look, I'm an STA, which means Seventh-day Adventist, and that means that we keep the seventh day of the week, the Sabbath, and we believe in the advent of Jesus Christ. And he didn't say any of that to me. I had to find out later because what was more important to him, which was the Lord leading him there, was just to be a friend, to be welcoming to me, that I didn't uh, get scared off. And he just shared with me as I asked. And I was just watching him, how he would just handle other people. And he would treat every single person exactly the same. And that was also something I really admired and thought, I want to be like this. I want to be like this person that doesn't care about what people think of me, but just lovingly goes to anyone and everyone and speaks to them all the same about Jesus and just talks Jesus all the time with everyone and encourages them. Um, so yeah, eventually I started like that was my first now visit to this church, and it wasn't too bad. It was not as bad as I thought. It was a little bit awkward in some places because there are certain people in all churches that make you feel a little bit more like you're not one of us kind of situation. But it wasn't everyone. Um, and a lot of people did make me feel welcomed and were happy to see someone new that was wanting to learn more and so on. So, okay, so after that, I didn't go again for a couple of times because I'm now still just learning about the Lord, and I'm seeing James quite often, and long story short, eventually, because he is my husband, so we just cut to the chase. We ended up realizing, you know what? I would love to marry you. I would love to have you as my husband and never ever let you go because um, you are the best person I've ever met in my entire life. I've never met someone like James, and I've never met someone like James ever since. Um, and he brought me so much to the God, and he made me fall in love with God, and not just because of the truths he shared with me, but because of the way he treated me and made me feel. Um, and and not just how he made me feel. I saw how he made others feel and how he was just this genuine person. So yes, eventually we got engaged, and I was helping him with one of the family businesses. I was trying to help him with that, and I was just trying to get myself involved wherever I could to be of help. So I was helping with his house and bed sitting, and we eventually got ourselves a little place, and we got engaged, and then a few things had to go wrong, and that is because I am not a person who was brought up in a Bible way. And God had a lot of work to do on me. And just because I felt accepted by James and by the Lord, didn't mean that I was going to change everything about myself overnight. Because a lot of the things that were wrong with me, I didn't know was wrong with me. I still had the Lord to reveal it to me. And so we didn't eventually James also being someone that wasn't visiting his church often, he would practice the love and the truth to everyone, but he found himself getting a little a little bit too involved in the Gentile way of living, if I can put it that way. So, be us dating and seeing each other, we obviously were not keeping some commandments, and I fell pregnant. And because we were planning to get married, but we just decided, wow, we're already married, so well, and then I fall pregnant. And that's now a big scandal in life. And then we realized that, there's a lot wrong with both of us. Yes, we love God and we want to serve Him, and we know so much. We've been learning so much truth, and He's learned so much truth. But He shared a little bit more about Himself to me, and He's shared this often with you guys. But I see there's a few other people, and this is going to be online, so there's going to be other people that might have not heard His full testimony. So I'll just give a small piece of it, being that. He was living a double life at that time because he didn't find a true purpose in God. He loved God. He was brought up in the Word. He was brought up a Seventh-day Adventist, but he never fully knew what purpose he had to play in it. And he loved the Lord so much, and he loved everything about Him. But us all, we all struggle, and we might try and please the Lord, and we do the best we can, but sometimes we all fall short, and we sometimes all make mistakes, and we all have our own weaknesses, whatever they are. And James' weaknesses at that time was just being accepted by people and not trying to be this, what he thought was a self-righteous person. And he didn't have any friends really to relate in that kind of environment, that he would want to people please too much, and he wanted to please me, and he didn't want to hinder me and stop me from being comfortable to do what I wanted to do. And at the time I was still a smoker. I had quit everything else, but I wasn't just yet ready to quit smoking just yet. So he was lenient with me about certain things, and it got him in circumstances that were not good for him. But he would show me that, he's got his own trials to go through, and he has his own places that he can mature in, and the Lord can still help him in. And that's when I realized that not only is James there for me to help me change, but I can be there to help him change him and encourage him, and to lift him up, where he didn't really have a lot, he didn't have many friends. Um, he Because he is the way that he is, um, a lot of people would take advantage of him. So I felt the Lord impress me to be there more for him too. That he doesn't just always have to be my crutch or my support and encourager to be in the Lord's way, that he is also a man in weakness and needs encouragement. And I found my true purpose with the Lord was this woman role. So I'm pregnant and I need to find the Lord more strongly. I need to get myself now in my right place. And James is going through the same. And now we have a serious situation where we're going to have a child and we're going to be parents. And if we want to bring this child up the right way and we want them to learn, we need to get ourselves right. So, yeah, James has spoken quite often about that top part of the testimony. But long story short, I had hope, and it was going fine for a little while, but my parents were getting a little bit too involved, and my dad was quite an influencer at the time. And that was something I had to learn, that I was going to have to, when I walk with God and when I go through these changes as He refines my character, that some people in my life are going to have to fall away. And the Lord's going to allow them and is going to let them fall away. He's not going to make me push people away, because that's not the point. We are to love everyone and be good to all. But my father was a terrible influence on my life, and he he would get me into places where he would manipulate me, and I loved him so much. And um I even though he wasn't perfect and my mom wasn't perfect, um I I still loved them. And even with me learning about the Lord, and him working on me, I had an even deeper love for my parents and understanding their trials in life. And I wanted to share God with them. So I thought, having my dad in my life, I want to share the Lord with him. I want to show him how I've changed. Maybe I can change my dad. But I wasn't yet ready to be changing people. And as I've learned walking through the truth, and having the Lord guide me, and I learned so many truths with him, I've learned that you can't just jump into the deep end of things and get into the field and start teaching people about Jesus when you are still being refined and changed yourself. Yes, you can give people your testimony and you can share truths with them, and personal situations and where the Lord has helped you. But to go into a ministry type situation, you're going to need a lot more refining, because there's going to be a lot more challenges and the devil's going to come and knock at your door often, and you're going to need to know how to deal with that. So I was not prepared. And with my dad being in my life, he influenced me more than I actually influenced him. So eventually, James and I came to a point where I went away. I left James. It wasn't a permanent leave. It was more, we both realized we're not in a good space yet, and we need to come back to God personally, because all that time we'd been together and the Lord had brought us together, and I'd been learning about the Lord and been changing, but I've never really had my own alone time with him. I've always been with James, and James being with me, and us having this baby now, and we just got married. We we were just, it was just always us, and we were clashing against each other, and it's a new marriage, and we're trying to figure out this whole, how do you live with a person, and you have to submit as a woman, and you have to love her as a husband. It was very, very challenging, and we kind of just, we didn't prepare ourselves, we didn't have counseling, we didn't learn about what a marriage was. We were just in it. And a lot of things can go wrong when you do that. When you get married out of the blue, and you have not gone with counsel with elders in the church, and you haven't gone with the Lord and really fully developed yourself and made and realized what your role as a wife and a husband is, and a mother and a father, things can go very bad, because the devil comes to divide and destroy, and he's going to do everything, especially us who love Jesus. He's going to divide and be on our case more than he is going to be on an unbeliever. So um, we separated for a little while, and I came here where we are staying now in Overston, and I came to stay with my cousins. And I got to experience a family who loves the Lord and lives by faith, as in they are just there to represent Lord, and we're there for anyone who at any time, but um, they don't have, they fully rely on him to take care of them, and their whole foundation on the children is for the children, and how to teach the children how to grow up in Jesus, and training them to become ministers themselves one day. Even as little children, they can be great ministers, and these little children were great ministers to me. They really made me realize a role as a mother, as a parent, and as a godly parent. And eventually, after some time, I think it was about 9 months that I'd been away, I decided it's time now. I feel impressed by God that it's time to return to my husband. I miss him. We've been apart for a long time, and my daughter needs her father. So I returned back, and 2 weeks after I returned back to James, COVID hit and lockdown was on. So we were stuck together now. If this is, we're going to try and make this marriage work, we have no choice but to make it work, because we cannot go anywhere. We are now on lockdown, and there's no other option for us. So we stayed in the smallest little flat that was just a one main room with a bathroom and a little kitchenette. And it was us three, my husband, myself, and our little daughter. She was almost 3 at the time. And that was the best time we'd ever had in our whole experience with each other. That small space made us become closer. And that bonding time with Hope, our daughter, and teaching her what we wanted to teach her all along, and realizing that, we want to take the health message seriously, and we want to garden and grow our own food. And we started realizing, but we don't want to just do that. We want to serve others, and we want to, that God has taken us through quite a lot, and he's taught us so much truth and so much character refining, that we are ready to start sharing it with others. And especially when it comes to people who are married and having marriage issues, for example. And the Lord brought people like that to us that we could minister to. There's many testimonies in between all of this from that day on going onwards, because James and I just got more and more into ministry after that, and we got more changes in our lives, and there was, a lot of other things. So that's a whole other testimony on it for another day, because it's quite long and there's details there I don't want to miss. And I'd like James to be with me as well. But basically, that is how God came into my life and changed me to who I am today. And if anyone from my old life had to see me today, I don't think that they would recognize me. I am not at all that same person. Yes, I am who God made me, that personality Samantha as a little girl. Um, and there's it refines that it now made me a new person. But I don't think the same. I'm a completely new creature. Once I'd been baptized into the Lord and having His Holy Spirit come into and live in my life, um, life has been it's been amazing. It's been the most challenging. It's been the most challenging. The biggest challenges in my life have been now, but it's not necessarily always in my own life with my family. It's got to do with persecution from outside, from my loved ones, from my brother not wanting to talk to me and thinking that I've never changed. He can't believe I'm different because he doesn't allow me into his life, and my parents and their persecution on me today, and people in general and old friends that think I'm nuts and I've gone off the complete bad end of things because look at me today. I'm a Jesus freak and I can't stop talking about him, and so on. And I have children. I don't want to vaccinate. I must be crazy. And I'm only a vegetarian. I don't want to eat meat. I'm nuts. And I want to give birth naturally. And I just last 12 weeks ago gave birth to my third child alone at home with only my husband, and the Lord is our guide. And I was very scared. And this was one of the biggest challenges I was going to go through because it's kind of a life and death situation. And I just fully gave my life to God and said, it's all in your hands. And whatever happens, happens, and it's your will. I'm going to trust you fully more than I'm going to trust the world and their ways, or what the hospital or pharmaceutical industry has to give me. I am going to fully trust in my Lord and Savior to bring me through. And He did. It was one of the easiest births. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience. It was a difficult experience, but a character changing experience. And God is changing us daily in things. So there's trials all the time, very difficult people. And the more you get into ministry, especially, and you start changing people's lives, you start baptizing people and having people that were gay that are converting over into changing their ways and coming to God. The enemy does not like that, and he uses people from all over, even people that you love, people who once supported you, even in your church, in your fellowship. He plants things in their minds to confuse us and to make us misunderstand each other or see something that's not really there. And bigger challenges, more things to go through. But it's all for the best for us. He says it's for our own good. It's for our glory. It's to make us ready to be with Him one day. And if we're doing such an important work, surely we're going to have these kinds of things, and it's only going to get more difficult. So we learn from them, we learn how to deal with them, and we always be transparent as much as we can, and we show that we are not perfect ourselves. We are still here on earth. We have not yet ascended to heaven, so that means there's still time to have work done in us, and the Lord can always refine and change. And it's just been an awesome journey, a real journey for once in my life. And I can finally be genuine who I am. And actually, I started realizing who God made me, who I had been putting aside because I thought I had to be something that society kind of molded into me and what influences from my family and friends. But when I came to the Lord, it was like a whole new clean slate. And I could just kind of learn who I am and be that person and not be afraid to be that person that God has made me to be and be refined by Him. So I thank you so much for sticking with me through all of this and having the patience to go through baby in between. And I'm so grateful that all of you came to come and listen. And I really hope that this has made an impact or shared something for you. I hope that it gives you a better idea of who I am, because I've always just been James' wife, and that's all you really knew. And that was it. And you didn't know a thing about me. And for a while, I was too nervous. I wasn't ready to share the kind of person I had come from being. But being where I am today, I'm no shame anymore. In fact, it only shows how great God is and how He can save anybody, no matter who you are, no matter where you've been, no matter what you have done in your life. Never think that you cannot come to God. He loves you with the love that you can never understand, and He will never reject you. You just have to get the courage to go to Him and open yourself to Him and let Him come to you and show you a better way. The best way in life is through Christ. I have been through quite a few versions in my life, and I've tried a few different things, and nothing comes even close to the love and the complete change in your heart, especially when you come to Christ. So I pray that you are blessed. I pray that you find Christ more and more every day, and that you let Him lead you through all your challenges in life, because they are for your good. Don't be sad and upset when you get sick. Don't be so brought down when you have people that you love going against you. Don't look down when you try and help people to see God and they just laugh in your face and you don't help people for a while. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Keep on trying. Christ says you endure until the end, and you endure hardness. And for us as Christians, the more we come closer to God and the more He converts us, the more harder those trials are going to be. Because there's very few people in this world that want Christ and want to fully change and really want to share Him with other people. So it's a privilege, it's an honor to be chosen and to have the opportunity to share that with others and to see their own change in your own life. And even when you think that you're in a good place and you think you've learned a lot and you're better than most, He can refine you again and remind you you are not better than other people. You need to condescend to people of lower estate. Even the small grass works ministry, even the just speaking to a random homeless person on the side of the road, that person is just as important to God as the person high up in ministry or high up in society. They are all equal in the sight of God, and they all deserve our time and our effort. You cannot just go and give literature or give a Bible to someone. You have to be there. You have to share yourself with them. You have to give your time over to a person. You have to share your own personal experiences, your testimony, and you have to share who Christ is and where you can find Him, and let them ask you questions. Giving someone something in today's society is a big gamble in life. Yes, you can pray that the Lord will work with them, but if the Lord has already put you in people's position, anyone in your whole life, in your working environment, you are a representation of Jesus. And wherever you are to show who Christ is at all expense, no matter what it costs. You are there to represent Christ. We are the watchmen. We are the ones that are the lights on the hill, and we are very few in this large world where there is millions of people. So I pray that you are blessed, and I thank you so much for hearing me. I'm going to ask James to close with the word of prayer, and then I'm going to say goodbye. I have to get back to my babies. But I thank you so much for your time. It's been a real blessing, and it's been really good for me to finally get it out and tell everyone and share with everyone. So I hope I got everything. I trust the Lord that it brought everything to mind. I didn't make too many notes because it would throw me off. But thank you so much again, James.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Craig.
Thank you, dear Heavenly Father in heaven, for giving words to Sam to say in these hours and to pour out her heart and the experiences that she has stored in her mind. And most importantly, to testify of your goodness and your grace, your love and your mercy, and that the truth may shine through her life and through what you have put her through and what you have helped her to gain in this time. And Lord, I'm so grateful to know her and to have her as a partner and to have her as a friend and to have her as my wife and mother of my children. I pray to Heavenly Father that you will just continue to imbue her with power from on high, that you will continue to do a massive and powerful work through her as we move forward to this end time. And I pray to Heavenly Father that your Spirit may rest upon us and that it will continue to rest upon all those that hear this testimony, to all those that are here today. And I pray to Heavenly Father that those will be blessed in the Sabbath times and also in the days to come. And I pray that you will have a massive revelational experience in the lives of so many people, and that you will prepare us. Lord, you have called us. Help us to be found in you. Help us to be chosen to do the work and to do it. And I pray to Heavenly Father that you will just bless us all is our prayer in the name and power of Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you, love.
Praise God.
Thank you all. Love you.
Thank you. Love you all. Bye. Have a blessed Sabbath.